Friday, everyone. Your real worth isn't defined by your net worth. What makes you valuable is how you use what you have been given. All of us have gifts. Make sure you're making the most of yours. Have an amazing Friday.
It is now the bottom of the hour. I'm excited to welcome Nancy Matthews to our program today. Nancy is an author of a book. I'm going to go ahead and highlight it in the carousel for you guys. There it is, The One Philosophy. I want to talk to Nancy not only about the re-release of the book, but also what it's been like for her to share the message with all of you guys. Nancy, great to have you on with us.
Hello, hello, hello. So happy to be here.
Today, over 1 billion children in the world live in poverty. At Help Heal Humanity, our goal is to connect children in need with people like you who want to make a difference. Our student sponsorship program helps provide children with the necessities for a healthy and successful start to life. When you sponsor a student, you're not only giving them the gift of education, you're giving them the best chance for a brighter future. 100% of your donation supports the tuition fees, uniforms, textbook, and school supplies needed to thrive in a safe and healthy learning environment. Sponsor a student now and be the catalyst for their brighter future.
Bonjour, comment ça va? Et toi? Très bien. Ni hao, hola, buongiorno, bienvenue, Wan Ying, bienvenidos, benvenuta, and welcome. Welcome to another exciting episode of Gem Hunter Stories. My name is Barry B. Mixon, and I am a gemological storyteller. And each week, I get the opportunity to take you on a journey to places you've never been before, to hear stories you've never heard before. Each week, I get the magnificent opportunity to take you on a mental, physical, and spiritual adventure into the art, science, history, and magic of gemstones, precious metals, and fine jewelry. And I do that because I want to use it as a template, as a bridge, as an inception point to get people from all around the world to begin the journey of discovering the value of their own stories. Good morning. I woke up this morning feeling especially Francais today. So to my friends and family in France, voila. And today we're going to talk about romance. And as I said in my Facebook post, I am not an expert on romance. I'm not. I've been in lots of relationships. I've been in 2.5 marriages, and I say a half a marriage because I dated my last long-term relationship lasted 10 years, and we did everything together. So for all intents and purposes, that was a marriage, and all 3 of those wonderful relationships didn't work. So I am not sitting here as some expert on romance. But what I am an expert in, and what I began to understand and see over the many years of learning about gemstones and precious metals and fine jewelry, is that some of the same characteristics, many of the same characteristics that you see in gemstones, you see in not only just people, but in relationships. And one of the great things about doing this show, and I thank all of you who watch this show religiously. I thank all of you who comment to this show, because it makes me have to really start to think about how those connections work. So last week, so the title of this show is Romance, Rubies, and the Magnificence of Time. And some of you saw that on Facebook were like, what is he talking about? Give me a second and I'll explain it to you. Last week, we were talking about rubies. This is still the month of rubies, and we were talking about red. And as I tell you all the time, this symbol is the symbol of the gem hunter. This is the symbol of my logo, because when you look at these gemstones, rubies coming from the 12 o'clock position, rubies, sapphires, emeralds, the 6 o'clock position, citrine, which is quartz, diamonds, and of course gold. The whole history of mankind revolves around these gemstones, and I'm always thinking why. And sometimes those answers, sometimes those revelations come to me through questions that my viewers or people that I meet, or when I do appraisals, those people ask me those questions, and I have to think, And last week I talked about the Rashad Melee watch. This, as I told you guys last week, and some of you couldn't believe it, is a $1 million timepiece. I don't really call watches like this. You guys refer to it as a watch, but when you understand what it is, it's a timepiece. It is a work of art. $1 million. And one of my viewers, one of my loyal viewers, and I've mentioned her before, I don't want to embarrass her, but one of my viewers who actually lives in my complex called me up and said, Barry, I got a watch just like that. And I'm like, you do? And she said, I have a watch that does exactly what that watch does. And I'm like, really? And she, next thing I know, I'm listening to her, and we talk, and then we hang up, and then she said, I'm going to show you. Next thing I hear is, and I open the door, and there she is. And in front of me, she shows me this watch. And she's not only just showed me the watch, she showed me the box, that the box came in this beautiful, really hard. In fact, it's right here. This beautiful box that clearly says Beverly Hills Polo Club. And inside the watch it's this beautiful watch which has a false bezel on it. You would think that you could rotate this bezel. You can't. But she said, this watch, what makes this watch different? She even told me that not only did she get this watch, but she got this watch on sale. This watch was originally $19.99, but she got it for the unbelievable price of $5. $5. And she said, how are people spending $1 million on a watch when you can get something that clearly says Beverly Hills Polo Club? What's the difference between that watch and a watch? The top watch is not even the top watch is the upper right-hand corner watch. That watch is $1.4 million. Remember, that was the black skull watch. You can see the black skull in it. And below is a watch that's $1 million. And as I closed the door, thinking about her reaction, I started thinking, wait a minute. She's right. What is the real difference between this watch, this beautiful watch and a nice case and everything else? I haven't put it on and I will keep it. She said as a gift, I will keep it. Thank you so much. One of my viewers gave me a beautiful watch and I'm sure it works. So what's the difference between a $5 watch and a watch that's worth $1.4 million? And it got me to thinking that they all three do the same thing. They tell time. They tell time. That this watch, if this right now it is 8:10 Chicago time. And I'm sure if I had that Richard Mille watch on, this is the Breitling that I have now, which costs considerable more. Again, we'll talk about different watches, but I'm sure that my watch, the Breitling, this watch, the Beverly Hills Polo watch, and that Richard Mille watch would all tell that it is 8:11 Chicago time. So what's the difference? Why should someone spend that kind of money? And it all revolves around the first principle of appraisal practice, of the appraisal profession. And I'll read it again, that the value of a property placed in the context of either a higher or lesser valued property will increase or decrease respectively by the association. Value. Which got me to begin to understand that romance is equal to value. Because I was talking about romance and I had put that on Facebook, and we were talking about the color red, and I was explaining to you what red does to people, and Jessica Rabbit and the color and the beauty of red. I was talking about romance, and after talking to my viewer, I said, wait a minute. Romance is equal to value. I started thinking that when you go back to the principle that the value of a property, basically in the context of either a higher or lesser value, will increase or decrease respectively by the association value. So the reason why someone will buy a Richard Mille watch, and sometimes I'll just call it RM, as they call it in the industry. When you buy a Richard Mille watch, you're not buying it for time. That's not the reason why you buy a work of art like this. To say that would be like saying you bought a Picasso because you just wanted to hang something up on the wall. No. When you buy a Richard Mille watch, you are buying something exquisite. You have to understand what it is. When you buy this watch, you are talking about buying a property, a substance that has exquisite workmanship. The men and women who take the time to create this watch, and I say create, not make, to create this watch, have taken years of experience of studying horology, studying the science of it. This watch has, let me not even go to her yet. This watch uses state-of-the-art materials. This watch uses materials. Remember the periodic table? Well, most of us know oxygen, nitrogen, boron, sodium, but this watch uses gemstones, uses materials that are extremely rare. You know how they have the elements at the bottom of the periodic table? That's what this watch does. And the people who buy this watch understand this. They may not have degrees in chemistry or biology or molecular structures or mechanical engineering or electrical engineering or substance engineering. They may even failed science. But in their craft, in what they do, they have chosen to wear a Richard Mille watch. I told another viewer of mine, we were talking about this watch, and I told her how Puffy said he thought it was an ugly watch. Oh, it's an ugly watch. He said he called a Richard Mille like a Timex watch, which in my mind, I was just like, and that's nice. That's what you believe. That's not what that's not what he believes. That's not what Jay-Z believes. That's not what Michelle Yao believes. Michelle Yao has not only a Richard Mille watch, but she had one specifically created just for her. A $1 million watch. She is sitting there with that watch on her arm. Perel is a spokesperson. Not only does he wear it, but he is a spokesperson for a custom design Richard Mille watch. And when I say custom design, I'm not talking about where they made one design and made 5,000 because of the elements, because of the material that is used in each and every Richard Mille watch. Every one of them is custom design. Every watch is designed in such a way we're not talking about where the timekeeping is just 1 minute off or a couple of seconds off. We're talking about nanoseconds. And for those of you who forgot your high school math or science, your nanoseconds, when you go into the nano, you're talking about 10 to the minus 9. You're talking about the same type of distances that your cell structures are made out of. And this watch is created with such precision that even though it is extraordinarily beautiful, Rafael Nadal can wear it during a match. Wear it during a match. This is the Black Skull, $1.4 million. There's Drake at a basketball game wearing his Richard Mille. Here are some of all the other artists. Kevin Hart, Terry Crews, all these artists, Seal, are wearing, Kanye West, are wearing a Richard Mille watch. I had the advantage of seeing the unbelievable opportunity to see one firsthand when this time last year, when I was in New York studying at Christie's Education, studying their watch. I had to speak there and study at their watch program. And when I saw it, it took my breath away. Not just what it looked like, but what it was made out of. And that's made me start to talking to my viewer when she brought the watch up, I began to understand on a whole nother level that it's about discovering the value of it, discovering what it is. How is it made? What did it take to put it all together? What materials did you had to collect? And remember what a gemstone is. Any gemstones. Remember the 5 things that is required to become a gemstone. First, it has to be rare. A Richard Mille watch is extremely rare. The metals, the workmanship, the springs, the distance between each gear, extremely rare. A Richard Mille watch is beautiful. And it may not be for you. Some of you are looking at this watch and say, oh my God, that's ugly. That's okay, because there's lots of people who stand in line for this watch because of its unique beauty, of the way it interacts with the light. We talked about one of the characteristics, another characteristics of a gemstone: rarity, beauty, durability. This man can wear this watch during a tennis match. Durability. This is not a watch that you just put on and go, oh my God, I broke it. You have the expectation for excellence, for superior workmanship. These watches were made with the same craftsmanship that super-powered military aircraft are used. We're talking about carbon fiber technology, the tubes, the same thing that they make F-35 fighter jets. You know, the ones that are stealth capability that you can't see, that's in that watch. Those Formula One race cars that you see on Indianapolis 500, that, or Le Mans, that's what those watches made out of. This watch is called the fighter jet, or the Formula One race car on the wrist. So you have to understand the value of it. And that's what got me thinking, how is that any different than romance? How is that any different than the romancing the person that's in your life? See, you cannot romance anything without first understanding its value. Think about that for a second. Think about anything in your life that you absolutely love and ask yourself, why do you love that thing? I don't care if it's a pen, a book, your cell phone, whatever it is. But especially when you love that person, you value that person. You value that person. And I want you to understand that this is not one of these conversations or episodes where I'm just talking about women. No, because women need to understand that we as men, we also have value. I'm going to let you read that again. You cannot romance anything without first understanding its value. So if you are thinking about romance, or if you're one of the people that say, and I meet lots of people, mostly women, who say romance is dead. Romance is not dead. I am absolutely convinced that romance is not dead because of what, in thinking about this show, romance can't possibly be dead. Because if romance is dead, then no one would spend $1 million on a watch. And because once you understand, and the only way you understand the value of that watch, of anything, of the person that you love, the only way you understand that, the value of that person, the value of that object, the value of that watch, is you have to understand the story of it. And if you understand the story of that person in your life, then just like whoever owns that Richard Mille watch would treat it in a certain way. A Richard Mille watch, this watch, it might stay in the box forever. It might, when I wear it, I'm not going to think of nothing about if it falls, if it drops. I'm not going to leave. I'm not going to think anything about a $5 watch. And no offense to the person who gave it to me, but it's the $5 watch. That's the story. In the back of the watch, it clearly says, if you look at the back, it says made in China. No offense to my Chinese family, but it's made in China. In fact, it doesn't have Swiss movement. It has Japan movement. So because I understand the story of this watch, then I understand that this watch, despite the value it has for me that someone gave it to me, but as far as what this watch is, it doesn't have as much value for it. So reverse it. If there's someone in your life, if there's a man in your life that you love, then there is something about that man that you value. Lots of times, and we've had this discussion on this show where we talked about queens, and you see in the media and women, TikTok and everything else, women sit there and cloudly proclaim, I am a queen, and therefore I deserve to be treated in a certain way because I am a queen. Okay, cool. You are a queen. No problem. But the last time I checked, and I went to halfway decent schools, the last time I checked, the last time I read a story about a queen, queens don't hang out with serfs. Queens don't go around and hang out with the indentured servants and have a relationship with them. Queens don't go date and marry the guy who was 2 days ago was digging ditches or growing potatoes. No, a queen only dates nobles, knights, princesses, and of course, kings. So when you're dealing with romance, when a woman is romancing a man, the romance comes not because she is obligated to do it, because she respects the king, the knight, the prince, the noble that man was. Remember long time ago, I told you the story of the first engagement ring that Maximilian I gave to Mary. Well, Maximilian he was a noble. He came from a noble family, but he didn't have a whole lot of money. It was Mary that had the money because her father was a king. So Mary, and it didn't happen all the time, that level of respect, but Mary respected Maximilian because he was somebody. She loved him because of who he was. And he loved her because of who she was. And even though they were only together for 5 years, and unfortunately she fell off a horse and died, and he felt the pain of that, but the romance that he gave to her, it's because he understood her story, so therefore he valued her. So romance is not dead, ladies. Maybe men don't, maybe people, because I want to respect my LGBTQ community. Anytime I say woman, please just underline, there's a line, put whatever turns you on. Let's just make that real simple, because romance works for men, women, kind of whatever you are. If you love your animal, there are people who love their animals. They care for their animals. They give their animals a certain type of food, or they walk them, because that is what romance is. And the only way you romance anything is that you have to understand the value of it. You have to understand its story. And once you begin to understand that story, romance is effortless. Romance is nothing that you think about. When all those people that bought that Richard Mille watch, all of them. In fact, there's a Richard Mille store that's opening up right here in Chicago. With all the recession, with all the global climate change and supply chain issues, there will be a Richard Mille watch opening right here in Chicago, and there's only 30 stores throughout the United States. They don't make Richard Mille in bulk. Some of them they may only sell 2,000, 1,000. This, ladies and gentlemen, you ready? Are you ready? This, ladies and gentlemen, is a $2 million watch. This is the top of the line. This is the watch that when you wear this watch speaks to the whole world that you're not just rich, you are phenomenally rich. That you can put $2 million on your arm. And some of you guys are saying, that's crazy. That's crazy. That's ridiculous. Why would somebody spend $2 million on a watch? I understand exactly what you're talking about. Only if I didn't understand what that watch is. The reason why you can see the gears, all the gears and screws on that watch is because the case of that watch is not metal. The case of that watch is a sapphire. Yes, it is a colorless, crystalline, pure sapphire. And we talked about how a ruby is the sister of sapphire. They are both made out of aluminum oxide. With the ruby, it's a hint of chromium, which gives it the red color. And sapphires come in every color of the rainbow but red, and it has a mixture of iron and titanium and some of the elements, sometimes just a little bit, just a little chromium. So when that happens, that's when you get a pink sapphire. So this is an example of sapphire with nothing. Just aluminum oxide, polished to such standards that it's just to microscopic standards. This is a $2 million watch. So every gear, the tourbillons are those floating wheels that you see in a mechanical watch. That's called a tourbillon. I love just even saying it. And each one floats because it has to work with gravity, the gravity of the earth. We're talking about a timepiece that measures something that we all experience, every living thing on this earth experiences, which is time. This watch measures that. Again, is it different than this? Does it not do the exact same thing that this $2 million watch does? Yes, it does. But because you understand the story of it, it's different. Now take a step back and look at the person that you love. Think about the person. If they're not there, think about the person that you love in your life. Is that person not rare? There's 7.8 billion people on the planet. And if you are fortunate enough to meet someone who loves you, that's rare. And if you've been through relationships or marriages in your past and you understand how extremely difficult it is to find the one. And if you find the one, that you should understand in your head, somewhere in your heart, that person is rare. You should understand that man that you're looking at with the big bald head or whatever else and stuff like this and decided to be friends, that man is who he is. And you love him. That woman, no matter what her shape, her size, her age, the color of her hair, whatever you found special about that person, you love that person. So therefore, that person is beautiful to you. I'm going to let you think about that for a second, and I'm going to see you on the other side because I got lots more.
When you do nothing, nothing happens. Best time to take action is now. This is the time to work on you and your business. So I've created a group, an online academy for professionals and entrepreneurs. Power Partners will help you to start helping yourself.
Helped me change my life and my business.
Not a Toastmasters, it's not a BNI, it's not any of these, but it is. So it's all this stuff in one place.
Get the results that you deserve right now. So what are you waiting for? Let's make it happen. See you in Power Partners.
D'accord. Okay. Rarity, beauty, durability. What's more valuable? The beauty of the materials. Thank you, Charles Jones. What's more valuable than the beauty? What's more valuable? The materials or the final product? You can actually say both. You can actually say both. And that's an excellent question. Let's put that in terms of the person that you're in love with. We all know that there's things that's special about us as people. We all know that there are things in our lives that we have had to go through in our lives. So all those individual things, do you just look at the fact that I have PTSD? I've gone through a lot of things in my life. I was homeless 30 years ago. So if you look at that one element, yeah, maybe it may not have value to you, but then when you look at the person as an overall thing, as an overall entity, that has value. Charles also said that romance is effort. And I'm not saying it doesn't take an effort, but the person who owns this $2 million watch, think about the effort that it took to earn the money to buy that watch. Think about the effort that person did to run the business or work in a business or do something in their life to earn that type of money. And the effort, I'm not saying it doesn't take work, but when you love something, it's not an effort. You love it. I think about TikTok has all these videos about what Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant did to play basketball. Just an example. To play basketball and how many hours that they spend in the gym after the game, before the game. That wasn't an effort for them. They loved it. Walter Payton, just his anniversary, I think he died on his birthday is July 25th. Walter Payton was known to work harder than almost anybody in the NFL, not because it was an effort, it's because he loved the sport. All the scientists, Isaac Newton, Madame Marie Curie, when they made their discoveries in their lives, they did everything. As a man thinketh talks about, very soon you so altered has your mind become that the workshop can no longer hold you. You utilize all your time and means, small they are, to the development of your latent powers. That is what romance is. When you love someone, then you understand what their birth date is. You don't miss their birthday because you understand that whatever day they were born, for you, that's a holiday. It's a special day. Christmas, Valentine's Day, 4th of July, your woman's birthday. And not particularly in that order. That's not an effort. If your woman likes flowers, then you don't have to wait for a special time. You understand what it means to give her flowers, what it means, the light in her eyes when she sees that flower. That's the effort. The no different that I'm sure that every time one of these stars puts on a Richard Mille watch, they smile. This is Richard Mille, the gentleman on the left. This gentleman on the right is a famous, I think he's a track star. And the woman in the middle, who's 74 years old, is the coach, is his coach. I don't know the whole story behind that, but what struck me was that how is this woman his coach? And the value of this woman would only increase once you understood who she is. Why did a gentleman, Richard Mele, who was totally into race cars, Formula One race cars, that's why he designs his watches, the precision of his watches after aerospace and fighter jets. How did I understand how he got with a track star? Remember, the watch is a Formula One race car on your wrist. I understand how he used, but what was the significance of this woman? What is her story? And once you understand that the story of that woman, then you understand who she is to him. Why he feels love for this woman. I don't know the story, but I guarantee you, once I find out the story, the value of who this woman is would increase. $2 million. Look at it. Look at the craftsmanship. Everything about it has value. How's that any different than the person that you love? I believe that the problem with romance is that we forget what is the core basis of romance. The core basis of romance is understanding the romance of that person, of the value, the story of that person. What has that person gone through to get to be the person that you love today? What education? How did they work out? How do they eat? How are they thinking? What is their culture? What is their religion? How do they do their hair and their nails? Every man knows that what you see, when you see a woman ready to go out, that's a process. That's an understanding that no woman just wakes up in the morning and looks like, ta-da. No. My mother taught me that years ago when I was a little kid. I didn't understand it until much, much later. That the romance comes from the value. So when you're talking about a ruby, you're not talking about just aluminum oxide that is put in such a depth in the earth that it literally, the pressure and the heat of a ruby is pressed in such a way where it causes what's called plastic deformation. Therefore, the light travels differently through it and causes the red color. You're not thinking about that. You're thinking about this. This is the necklace that Elizabeth Taylor's, I think it was her second husband, gave her, presented that to her. So in this man's mind, when he married, you know, Elizabeth Taylor had what, 6, 7 husbands? She was number 2. She married Richard Burton twice. But once upon a time, this man loved this woman so much that he wanted to present her with I think this necklace was rated at something like $1.9 million. It sold at auction, diamonds and ruby, the whole necklace. And because of the value of those gemstones, the setting has to be platinum. Because what platinum does. So to Charlie's question, the value, yes, when you understand that you're putting platinum, which has its own value, together with rubies that has its own value, together with diamonds that have their own value. When you put all those things together, you get voila. You get that necklace. And the value only increases because of the parts of that person. This is a brooch that Queen Elizabeth II received from Prince Philip years ago when she was a young woman. This is the brooch that he gave her, because when you romance someone, You love their value. You love who they are. This is the guy that was in the background. If you didn't know who he was, you didn't know who he was. You were like, oh, some guy standing next there in a military uniform. You knew the queen, but you didn't know her. But she knew that despite the fact that I am the queen, my man is my man. And you will respect my man because I love my man. And we know nobody's perfect. Prince Philip wasn't perfect, but she, for I don't know how long they were together, 40, 50 years, value. When this is the, I don't want to misquote it. I can't remember right now the name of it, but look at it. Someone received this ring. Someone received, oh, this is the Graf diamond. This is this ruby, not diamond, ruby. This ruby is according to the world, this is one of the most perfect rubies. So when the person who received this ring from someone who saw the value of who they are on such a level that it superseded the price. It's never about the price. Romance is about value. If your relationship has changed, if the person, think about who you were, think about the relationship that you had with that person when you first met them. Remember that song that I played long time ago, Roberta Flack's, the first time ever I saw your face. And remember how Roberta Flack described this person, this guy, that she thought the moon and the stars rose in his eyes. No, that she thought the sun rose in his eye, and the moon and the stars was the gift he gave to the dark. So from the moment she saw him, the first time ever I saw your face, from the moment she saw him, she understood on a spiritual level, on a metaphysical level, she understood or felt that she understood his value. And thereafter that is romance. Because now you're talking about caring. Now you're talking about elevating. Now you're talking about being able to let that person know who that person is to you. And sometimes we use jewelry to do that. Oftentimes we use jewelry to do that. Think about it. Think about the dichotomy of gemstones and watches. A ruby is just a snapshot of time. 10,000, 100,000, probably not a million, but at least hundreds of thousands of years ago, billions of years, at least a billion years for the diamond. This was created. That symbolizes that first time, that moment, that special occasion when you gave that person, the person in your love, you gave them to symbolize that moment. And then the watch symbolizes the time. When you buy a watch, when you buy an exquisite watch like a Cartier, a Richard Mille, just a Bulgari, what you're celebrating is time. Aren't those two of the elements that two of some of the most important elements in any romance? Is understanding what you have now, what you had 10, 15, 20 years ago, and understanding the value of what you have today. If I gave a woman, let's reverse, this is for men. If a man receives this ruby from someone, from a woman, rubies represent passion. Rubies represent strength. Rubies represent the blood. It represents the blood coursing through your veins. If a woman saw this ruby and the strength and the different cut of it and gave that ruby to a man, You don't, 30 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, if that man gave that same ruby pendant to his son or to his daughter, the reason why it's important is not because, to Charlie's question, it's not the material, it's not the aluminum oxide with the hint of chromium. No, it's the story behind it. The value comes from the story. So the romance of that woman giving that man that pendant continues on. It's like breathing when you really get to the point of understanding how romance is valued. You value breathing. You don't think breathing is an effort. It takes an effort. You have to breathe in. You have to let it out. But you've never considered an effort because you love life. You love breathing. You love being alive. When you give a woman a pendant with the ruby and emeralds and diamonds and pearls, and we talked about those gemstones, those coming together represent some aspect of your lover, some aspect of what that person means to you. And every time she wears it, she remembers that. And that's why romance, that's why I'm saying romance is I won't say easy, but it's not as difficult. It's certainly not dead, but it's not as difficult as people make it. Because if you care for someone, if you love someone, you are constantly looking, and it doesn't have to be $1 million of jewelry. It could be one flower. It could be a walk through the park. It could be holding that person's hand and looking into that person's eyes. And for them, your eyes are that gemstone that they received on that day, on that moment. When you give, if you've given someone, a woman, this beautiful, just breathtaking diamond and ruby, you think she's not going to remember that forever? You think that the value of this piece, no matter what you paid for it, the value of this piece has only increased, not because she's next to the ring she's wearing, because the ring came from you. That's what romance is. Romance is, if you've ever loved a woman, there is, no matter how beautiful a gemstone is, there is nothing more beautiful than that moment of making a woman smile. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, I don't know. But when you make a woman smile, when you see that twinkle in her eyes, even just for a moment, when you hold her in your arms and she thanks you for something that you have given to her, and then you ask any woman, it's not the price, it's the thought. It's the thought that you meant. So maybe you can't afford this. Maybe you got something from Target. Maybe you went to a store and you bought a $5 watch. And if I, as a man, did not have a watch, and the fact that she thought enough about me to bring me a watch that allows me to tell the time, then that is what romance is. That is what man. So today, what I want you to understand as you begin your day with the people that you love, with your family, with your friends, with the woman, the man that's in your life, think about what romance is. Think about what makes them valuable to them, to you, and love them. And when you begin that process, voila, that is the art of romance. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please leave comments. Please leave thoughts. It helps me. It builds the show. It helps me keep working and imagining. And until we meet again, my name is Barry Mixon, and I am a gemological storyteller. And each week I ask of you to take a moment in your life to discover the value of your story. Until next week, au revoir, à te tella, voila.